All right, well, there's a good amount to talk about today here on the pregame thoughts. There's been a lot of roster moves, obviously the lineup, the bullpen chart, the starting pitching matchups, as always. Happy 4th of July. So the Padres announced today, this afternoon, that they are recalling Jose Castillo, Matt Waldron, and Matthew Batten from El Paso. Obviously, those guys, they have big league experience, and the Padres, they optioned Domingo Tapia to El Paso, who just pitched yesterday. They placed Michael Wacha on the 15-day IL with right shoulder inflammation, retroactive to July 2nd. And then they designated Nelson Cruz for assignment. Let's cover the Michael Wacha thing first. Wacha, I think that has to be a little bit concerning if you're a Padres fan, because Wacha has been one of the better starting pitchers just kind of in baseball this year. And he has definitely performed up to the level, probably exceeding the level of the contract the Padres gave him for this season. So how are they going to fill that role? Is it going to be Adrian Morhone, kind of like what happened on Sunday? How are they going to fill that? Are they going to bring Ryan Weathers up at some point? This takes him through the All-Star break. If this counts for All-Star break days, or it only counts on days where games are played, I don't know if it counts like the All-Star break as days. If it does, then he should be able to come back, I believe, the second series back from the All-Star break, if it's retroactive to July 2nd. But if the All-Star break doesn't count, then it would delay it even more. So we'll see what happens. Do they acquire a starting pitcher? Do they go with Weathers? I wouldn't anticipate someone like Jay Groom coming up. Do they just go bullpen days on those days? Nick Martinez, does he build up more? I'm curious to see what happens there. Obviously, Wacha, he has been really good for the Padres this year. Nelson Cruz, him being designated for assignment, that's not I mean, to be honest, I was surprised by it, like right now with the timing. The All-Star break's right here. I'm not looking at the numbers right now, but I think he's actually been doing better since he came off of the IL. I think he was dealing with that hamstring issue earlier this year. So I was kind of surprised by the timing of it. But just the fact that he got DFA'd, I'm not surprised by it. The guy was making $1 million this year. So, yeah, I thought he was going to be DFA'd at some point this year, especially when he was struggling at some point or earlier this season. At some point he was going to get released or DFA'd, and he'll probably get released. So, because it was a really cheap contract, and the Padres, they probably want to try, if they're going to buy. That's if they're going to buy. They're going to probably try to add a bat at the deadline, and Cruz would just go anyway. So, and they're bringing in Matthew Batten, who can actually play the field. So it does make sense. Odor, you can have Odor DH, you can have Carpenter DH, you can have someone like Manny DH, like he is today. Have a rotating DH, what I mean. Like, I'm not saying Manny's going to DH every day, but you could do that. Brandon Dixon, still on the roster. He could play first if you want Crony to be at second, or you want Crony just to not play. Have Kim at second. So there's ways they can go about this without having Nelson Cruz on the roster. So obviously wish him well. Did he live up to the contract? I mean, it's kind of hard to not live up to a contract when you're only making $1 million. So there were some moments, the Nelson Cruz moment you think of probably was he homered, right, in Mexico City. You probably think of that, but it was a pretty uneventful tenure with the Padres. I guess I also remember going back to the WBC. He was not playing for the Padres, obviously, but he got in that game. And he was like being the GM, and there were questions in spring training about that. So I guess that's some stuff that I remember about Nelson Cruz here under the San Diego Padres, like in that organization, his time here. But yeah, so I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh my gosh, I'm going to miss Nelson Cruz, whatever. Bullpen situation for today. So Waldron coming up, Castillo coming up. They should be ready to go. Like, they're not going to come onto the roster and not be able to pitch today. So behind Musgrove, I think that Hill would be down 3 straight days in a row. Cosgrove 3 straight days in a row. He would be down. But Hader should be able to go. Maybe Nick Martinez can't. But Hader, I'd say Martinez, I think. But the way he's been pitching, maybe Bob Melvin wants to avoid him. Garcia, Honeywell, Morahone, or maybe not Morahone. He had 42 pitches the other day. So Hader, Martinez, I'll just put in there because Melvin loves to go to he loves going to Nick. Garcia, Honeywell, Castillo, Waldron. Those are guys that are going to be available today in the bullpen behind Joe Musgrove. And Joe Musgrove, this is going to be probably a cool start for him, pitching at home in front of, his family, friends in San Diego, in front of the home crowd on the 4th of July. It's going to be packed. Shohei is on the mound opposing him, sharing the same mound as him. I think that is going to fire him up, and that's going to want him, it's going to motivate him to outduel Shohei today. So we'll see how that goes. Now remember, Juan Soto yesterday said that Shohei's going to have a hard time with this lineup today for the Padres. And I was like, probably not the best thing to say there, Juan. I know you're confident, but the way this lineup has hit this year, probably not the best thing to say when you're going to be facing the best player on the planet. But we'll see how that goes. Yesterday he backed it up. I know he was talking about what's going to happen today, but yesterday they scored double-digit runs. Don't think that's going to happen today, though. I think we're probably going to be sitting here saying, while we're watching this game, hey, man, should have saved some of those runs that they scored yesterday. I know that doesn't work. That's not how it works in baseball, but probably going to be sitting there like, man, so they did that yesterday, and Hader was pitching in that 7-run game, and today, the offense, they're having a hard time finding the offense. But we'll see what happens. The lineup today, Kim is at second, Soto is in left, Tatis in right, Manny DHing, Bogarts at short, Crony at first, Gary's catching, Odor's at third, filling in for Manny, obviously. And then Grish, he is in center, batting ninth. So, yeah, again, with Nelson Cruz being DFA'd, you can have Manny, you can have an everyday guy, DH, give him a half day off. You can have Gary, DH, if you want Nola catching for a day, and you still want Sanchez's bat in the lineup. You can have Carpenter, DH. I think they've had Dixon even DH for one of these games. So, they can find someone to DH. Nelson Cruz, I don't think it's a huge deal that he was DFA'd, Clubhouse presence and all that. Well, guess what? I don't know if that means a whole lot now when he's been in the clubhouse for months and this team is, 7 games under 500? It's time to win games. And having Batten here, probably the last guy on the bench, but having him here, someone that can play multiple positions, it's probably better, to be honest, than having Nelson Cruz sit there and DH every once in a while. So there's my pregame thoughts. Underdog Fantasy on the Joe Musgrove strikeouts. I believe it's the strikeouts. I'm going to go higher on that. I really like it. Mike Trout going on the IL today. Obviously, that's unfortunate for Angels fans, and it's unfortunate for baseball fans because I'm sure some Padres fans wanted to see Mike Trout play, and they're not going to get to over these next couple days. So who knows if the Angels make the postseason now, because this could determine if they make the postseason, having no Trout for the next few weeks. But today, obviously, that should make Joe Musgrove's job a little bit easier. They're also banged up as well, not just Trout, but Drury, DiUrshela. There's guys that are banged up. So, yeah, I'm going to go higher on the strikeouts, and we'll see if the Padres can keep this going after a good offensive night yesterday. Can they do it against one of the best pitchers in baseball and the best player on the planet?